How's it going, everyone? This is Steve from Red Riot Games, and today I am joined with 40%, and is going to be giving us a deck profile for Sylvie, which is the character in an upcoming game called Grand Archive. So I'm going to be a little bit silent here and allow 40 to give us the lowdown on what's going on with Sylvie. So you want to go ahead and start with your, I guess, wherever you feel like is the best way to start for your character.
All right, so today we're going to talk about Sylvie, the newest champion that's been added to the prelude bundle of cards that people are able to deck build with, and she brings a lot of interesting things to the table. So I guess the first thing to be started off was, why do you want to play Sylvie? So let's look at Sylvie. First of all, actually we should just bring out all three here. Sylvie is ultra cute, obviously. So that's why you want to play her. Also, if you play other games, she's very ally based. So she really wants to make big creatures and uh, protect them, which is kind of different from like the mage who really just wants to throw big spells at draw a lot of cards, throw big spells, and Lorraine's kind of got like big attacks. Sylvie's all about like making big creatures and having them stick around to do stuff. And so um, I guess we'll talk about like the perks of her champion card. So on level 1, she gets the next ally or beast card you play gets an additional buff counter on it, and that pays you off on some of the reasons you're playing this card. Well, the tamers are all based around bonuses for allies or beasts, and some of the ones that she has class bonus for that you're really trying to pay off for, especially in the wind variant, are things like this monkey here. So he has tamer class bonus. It's a really big stat line for four costs because it comes in as a base 6/6 once you're a tamer, and with the level 1 it could be a 7/7. The only hard thing about it is that in order for these allies to listen to you, unlike the other allies that will just basically attack and defend as you choose, you have to be uh, you have to have a level that's equal to or higher than their pride level. So for this monkey to attack the Tempest Silverback, you need to have 5 levels. Um, her level 2 is, oh man, I guess I'm maybe not quite as sure how I'm supposed to go through this, but her level 2 lets you draw cards, which is obviously pretty good. It pays off actually faster than some of the other ones. If you look at the Rye package, his level 2 makes it so that every time you play a spell, you gain like a third of a card. But when Sylvie level 2 comes in, she can potentially just draw you straight up 2 cards, but it's pretty hard because you need to have this trigger will go on the stack, and then the allies have to be there for you to draw them. So if they get killed uh, or that your opponent doesn't let it live through the turn, then you're not drawing as many cards. So that's like pretty conditional. And then her level 3 is ultra defensive, unlike the other ones, which are a little bit more offensively natured. Sylvie level 3, in addition to giving you access to the Terra advanced element, gives all your animal and beast allies +1 health and intercept, which is kind of nice because some of the heroes, especially like Lorraine's, like really want to attack, or other Sylvies want to attack with their minions to hit you. And basically, since so much of your deck is animal and beast, it's very hard for them to get through as long as you have a beast or ally. And also, in comparison to some of the other heroes, her level 3 I feel is very value focused. So uh, you can grind out a game as long as you can kind of slow down the game. Like eventually you're gonna win because she has a lot of like slow cards that basically you can get back all the time or just continuously generate value as opposed to just outright killing your opponent. So a lot of her gameplay is about getting these allies out, and then trying to get to level 3 as probably as quickly as possible. She has a little bit less like mid-game plays because her level 2 doesn't really do anything other than draw you cards, unlike maybe Lorraine, which has a bit more ways to abuse it, or Rise, where you could like kind of. Well, I guess Rise is kind of also benefits a long game, but yeah, she doesn't have like a whole lot of early stuff. And I guess a big drawback to Sylvie versus the other one is she has no board clears, so she has to use a lot of her allies, or at least in the set so far. There's no board clears really, unless you want to run a really low-powered Hurricane Sweep or Purge in Flames, unlike how they would be in Lorraine or Rye. I guess we should talk about payoffs for level 3. So some of the cards that you're really looking to play at the end of the game, and then we'll look at the ways to get there. So the way you're probably going to win the game as Sylvie is either some of your tarot cards, like this Phoenix, or this card called Terracite. I think she has a lot of good cards, obviously in the final tier, as all of them do, but I feel like the core ones you're looking for a lot of the time are. Wait, I should have one copy of
Wait,
in
sorry,
here.
can you go back to just and just kind of show us one card here at a time?
Yeah. Okay. So our Gaia's Wings is a pretty cheap for a 3/3. Obviously, 3/3 for 3 is great stats, but it also has this added benefit of uh, every time it hits your recollection phase, it permanently basically gains another 3/3 in stats. So it gets huge if they don't deal with it immediately, and it's essentially infinite value because if they spend cards to try to kill it, it goes into your memory instead of dying like normal cards. So it's always just going to end up either back in memory or just getting to like a huge stat line that if they can't bounce it somehow, then we'll just smack them for once for basically the whole game. Um, Also, because of this next card that I really think is
Sorry.
really
And in a deck
sorry.
like this, how many of this are you playing?
Um, I like to run 3 just
Okay.
because I'm actually thinking about maybe even 2 because the problem with this card is that it is infinite value, but it's also unique, which is like a legendary tag. So you can't have more than one of them out. And it's actually pretty hard to get to Pride 6. So if you're not at Pride 6, it sits out there and it basically does nothing because even if it has intercept, because you're level 3, it will not intercept for you because it won't obey your like you can't basically tell it to intercept because it'll have too much pride. So you need to be able to hit level 6. So it's not a card that's gonna like win you the game on the spot. You just want to get it eventually. So I think 2 is enough that you'll probably see it in the deck, especially since there's cards that support finding this card. Um, and then I guess I'll talk about the tarot cards, but another card that's probably going to help you win that game is that monkey that I showed earlier. I mean, the silverback, the gorilla card here. We'll bring it out again. So yeah, this guy also Pride 5, so you need to be level 3 plus have 2 bonuses basically in order for him to attack or defend. But his stat line is huge, and you'll be level 3 by the time you're swinging at your opponent with it for 7. So these are basically your finishers.
Sorry, and sorry, as you're showing the cards, could you let us know kind of you want to, like you said with the last one, you wanting to run 2 of that one. You're currently running 3, but
Yeah,
you wanting to run 2. And so
yeah.
Tempest Silverback, meaning like, oh, it's a 4 cost with a Pride
Mhm.
5. I'm assuming that getting to Pride 5 is not that difficult in the way that you've set up the deck. So, or would you be running 3 or 4 of a Silverback Tempest?
So the Silverback Tempest I actually run 4 of because Silverback Tempest not only is your finisher, but it's also like a really beefy uh like ally that probably will either cost them real cards to kill, and by real cards I mean cards without floating memory, so they'll have to commit to lose a card basically to kill this um, often, or they won't be able to. And you really need, in order for level 2 to really pay off and draw a card, you'll probably want a Silverback out because it's pretty hard for your opponent to put up 6 damage. And if they're putting 6 damage into your ally, it's also 6 damage less to your face, which is good. So there's a good chance they'll leave it alone, and then you'll be able to draw the card with the level 2. And we'll talk about another card that I think is really good for every champion later, but will help your level 2 pay off even more.
All right. So let's run through some more of these allies here and see,
The allies,
yeah,
sure.
and see where we're ending up.
Okay, so some of the other allies you're running are the Trained Hawk. So the early game when you get your level 1, you're probably going to want to use that turn to either play a Tempest Silverback or a Trained Hawk. So you run 4 of each of these guys, or I run 4 of each of these guys. Trained Hawk has the key text Vigor, which means he becomes awake at the end of your turn. So you can attack with him for free, essentially. And a 2/2 stat line isn't that big, but a 3/3 basically will clear any like most cards. 4 is kind of like a stat line that it's hard to kill something to do 4 damage with 1 card a lot of the time. So 3 is pretty good. Like if you kill something with it and then it wakes up, you can retaliate with it on the opponent's turn if they try to kill it a lot of the time. And especially if you're playing in wind, um, well, you have to play wind, but in wind you have access to a lot more tools that will protect your allies, so you can get even more value out of the hawk, or you can try to bait removal with the hawk and then play your cards that save the hawk to just get even more value. This one will help you clear the board earlier if you need it. If they're not really applying pressure, you could play the Silverback and just hope to try to get to a higher level
It's
faster.
also the first card we've seen without pride.
Yes, it also has no pride, which is really good because early it can feel like Sylvie's not doing anything. So you really need some minions that can attack and make sure that their field doesn't get out of control. Because even if they have like 2 Flame Rune Swordsmen at 2/2, like that's 4 damage. Like that's gonna clear a lot of stuff. So you need to do something to clear off their board, and you don't really have weapons as Sylvie. I mean, you can force the weapons, but uh, it's obviously not going to be like how it is for Lorraine. I guess we could talk about more of the allies. So another ally that is specific for tamers is the Menagerie Bonder. So she's a 1/3 for 3. So the cost isn't very high. 3 health is fairly decent for one of these cheaper cards. And she also has the text that if you have a beast or an animal, you get +1 level while she's out. And floating memory if you're a tamer. So only for tamers, it's floating memory, and we love any card that has floating memory on it because essentially you can use it to pay out to get your level ups because leveling up is pretty expensive. It's going to cost 1, like if you pay it normally, it's going to cost you 6 cards, and that's quite a few cards. So if you could play cards like this, have it do anything, maybe help your Silverback attack while you're at like level 4 or something, you're getting a lot of value. Also, at a 1/3, they might just leave it alone. So we love this card.
Just for those that are maybe kind of newer to the game, much like myself.
Mm-hmm.
So we're seeing the fire element on this character, and your Sylvie is, I believe, it's air, right? On our Earth,
It's wind.
wind. Sorry, so
Oh,
wind.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Oh, well, actually, so I guess I should have prefaced this that we're playing the wind. I'm covering the wind variant. There's also the fire variant. Um, each each element kind of plays quite differently because of its base card pool.
mhm.
The wind card pool is generally more about playing tricks and saving your allies. So
That's
yeah,
fine.
that's
Okay,
this version.
so for the energetic beast bonder, if she's
Mhm.
fire, how is she able to play into the deck?
Well, you need a lot of you need a lot of levels to attack with these guys. So you she obviously can help you provide a level while she's out,
But I mean,
and
like,
your opponent.
are you still able to use the beast bonder when she's fire and your Sylvie is wind?
I mean, this is the Menagerie Beast Bonder, not the other one, the fire
Oh,
version.
okay, sorry, yeah, a Menagerie Beast Bonder. Okay, so I was
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of confused because I was looking at her and I was like, wait a second. So how
yeah,
is he
yeah.
playing this card? Judge?
No, 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 no. You definitely do not play multiple elements that you can't play the cards of. I mean, you technically could. You could put multiple spirits in your deck, but then you'd
But do these two
have
have
a lot of dead cards.
do they have essentially the same focus?
Um,
Like the
they'll
both
behave
beast.
quite differently because this one costs 3 and is a 1/3 stat line. The other one's a 2/2 and
Yeah,
costs
cost
4.
four. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
I was a little confused. Like I guess I misheard you when you said beast bonder, but okay, so that's fine. Yeah,
Yeah.
what's the
I
next?
could talk about the differences. Like the
Um,
3 is very important for the like because it lets you hold more cards up to defend the card basically, and a 1/3 is more likely to survive.
mhm.
The 4 is very expensive for a 2/2 in the fire, but 2 can clear another ally potentially. Like 1 is very rarely going to clear something on its own. So the red one can clear stuff. Obviously, in wind you only have access to the green one, but I prefer the green one in general just because it costs less to play.
Makes sense.
But they're both you definitely put 4 of them in your deck.
So either one is 100% going to be a staple
Yeah,
inside of a deck like
yeah.
this. So this is your the one that's going to give the assist to get the levels that you're going to need in order to get your pride up there to be able to use
Hmm.
all these other guys. Okay.
Also, if they die, like you can use them to level up or get other stuff out of your material deck. So you really like floating memory and basically anybody but Rye decks. Like in the Lorraine decks, I'm probably running somewhere between like 15 and 20 cards with floating memory. So Sylvie also has like a lot of cards that are like kind of expensive. So you really want floating memory so that you can keep more cards in hand and also try to and like level up and still be able to play your cards. Um, I guess we'll talk about uh,
The next ally?
uh, yeah, the next ally. So this is another floating memory ally. This is also one of the reasons I like Wind a lot is because of Swift Recruit. Swift Recruit is a floating memory. As you'll notice that also it's the floating memory is better than the one on Menagerie Beast Bonder because this one is tied to a class bonus, which is Tamer, and you only become Tamer once you're Sylvie level 1. So you can't use her to pay to get into level 1. But if Swift Recruit dies, you can pay with him to get into level 1. So I definitely like the Swift Recruit. Also, he has intercept on him, so you can just have him sit there and you can either have him like contribute damage like normal, or you if you really want it uh, be able to pay off your level 1, you can just have him sit there and take a hit for you and level up safely. Also, it's pretty important to block like big attacks sometimes from Lorraine's or like opponents' big beasts and stuff. So having a cheap interceptor that has floating memory is great. Um, I guess I talked about floating memory a lot, but I actually of Swift Recruit, I'm only running 2, mostly because Sylvie's level 3 gives all of the beasts and allies intercept, so I don't need to run as many normal interceptors as I would want to face other like Lorraines and stuff.
So basically, he's there to help you in the beginning of the game, kind of
Yeah,
stay
he's
alive.
He's there to help you get floating memory and just to be more floating memory essentially. So he's not really like core to your strategy. He's not a beast. He doesn't do anything related to beasts. He's just a guy
He's just a dude beating up
with
a scarecrow.
good stuff on him.
All right, and your next ally?
The next ally, I guess we'll talk about. I would say probably the most important ally for this deck, Dungeon Guide. Dungeon Guide is a very, very important card, I would say, in every class right now. And it's awesome because the text says that when you player, you can banish 2 random cards to level up. And if you'll notice that your level 3 always costs 3, and if you play Dungeon Guide to get into level 3, you save a card. So that's awesome. And also, you only materialize 1 card per turn. So by playing Dungeon Guide, you can basically get an extra materialize phase, and it also lets you materialize outside of the materialize phase, and that's, I think, especially important for Sylvie because this Sylvie is very reliant on your board state. So if you can um, level up into level 2 outside of your materialize phase, you can play like an animal or a beast and then play Dungeon Guide and then almost guarantee that you're going to draw the card, as opposed to just having it out there and like hoping your opponent leaves it alone or saving it with other cards and then leveling up. So Dungeon Guide very good on the level 1 to 2 in this and as like every other class from 2 to 3.
So
So
that's a question here. So with Swift Recruit, obviously you're running 4 of them, and with our Hawk, it's 4 of them as well. And I'm
mhm.
gonna get hazard a guess that a Dungeon Guide is another card that is running on a 4 of, correct?
Yeah, Dungeon Guide is a 4 of. I would say it's important in every deck, but because I feel in Sylvie the level 2, like getting value out of your level 2 sometimes is tied to your Dungeon Guide. Uh, I just run the full 4, even though Wind has a way of recycling her on enter effect because of a floating memory card that'll come up later when we go through the actions, I guess. But we'll talk about that one when we get there, I guess.
Makes total sense. So what's the next ally we got here?
The next ally is actually Woodland Squirrels. And you might be like, why would I ever want a 0 cost 1/1 guy? And the answer is to support 2 other cards. So I'm running Woodland Squirrels to basically support my level 2 with the Dungeon Guide, so I can draw a card for the animal um, the animal tag, and yeah, and I'll hopefully have a beast out, or if not, I at least draw 1 card and it'll replace itself. So that's one synergy. And then I guess I should bring out the other reason I'm running it is I'm running this other ally called Asian Protector. So Asian Protector he's kind of expensive. He's 4 costs, so he's out of your hand is going to cost 5 cards to play him, and it bounces another minion. But the squirrels cost 0, so you don't have to commit any more cards to your memory. You just play the squirrel, attack with the squirrel, play your Asian Protector, get your squirrel back, and then you can use your squirrel to pay for other stuff or pay for cards that will protect your protector. Or and then having the card in hand isn't that bad because you have cards Dungeon Guide that banish it to banish to level up into other things. So it's kind of just for synergy's sake. But I'm only running 2 of this, and I'm running another card that's in a similar spot as that, which I'll bring out now, I guess. Well, actually, yeah, we'll talk about Al Familiar, then I'll talk about Asian Protector, I guess. Al Familiar is just another low cost guy. He actually costs 1 and still has the 1/1 stat line, but also has Glimpse 2, which can really help you find the cards you're looking for. It's important, I think, in Wind to glimpse because it has less like deck speed than some of the other like fire classes. So if you could glimpse 2 and you put 2 to the bottom, that's like getting rid of 2 cards you didn't want to draw, or fixing the order so you draw the important card first, and then you can get extra value by putting it back in your hand with the Ancient Protector, or drawing cards with the Dungeon Guide. And then just like the squirrel, you can get rid of it to pay for something else, basically. And then the Ancient Protector, the bounce is kind of nice. I used to not be so high on this card, but a 3/4 stat line is huge, and it doesn't have pride or anything. So it's a 3/4. It has intercept, and bouncing an ally can matter because certain other champions like Lorraine will try to like sweep the board and draw a lot of cards. So if you can play Asian Protector, you can like pick up your weaker minions that don't matter as much anymore, so that you can use them to either pay for other cards or just so you don't take as much damage. I mean, you don't let your opponent draw as many cards. They try
So
to
in
sweep
this
your board.
case, you could get rid of your like the hawk, or you can get rid of your squirrels. I mean,
Yeah, well,
could you in essence, I mean, could you play Asian Protector
mhm.
with your level 1 to bounce it to level 2? I mean, you play your level 1,
Yeah,
Sylvie, and then you play
mhm.
your dungeon guide, right? And then
Yeah,
if you're in a wonderful world, you have all the cards. You play
yeah,
Asian Protector, and then to pull dungeon guide back, play it again, and then
yeah,
level up again.
exactly.
I
So if
mean,
they leave their Dungeon Guide, you can double dip on it.
wow, that's pretty nutty.
Yeah, so the reason, yeah, I was like looking for more things to really get more value out of Asia Protector, and Sylvie loves Dungeon Guide, and the Owl Familiar is another way to pay that out. So it's pretty good, and the stat line 3/4 is pretty hard to remove, especially early, and it'll probably kill whatever you want it to kill.
He's an interceptor too, right? So and he can gain life
Yeah,
from Sylvie's level 3, so he's 3/5
he
then at
wouldn't.
that point.
No, he
No.
actually will not, because he's just a guardian human. Um,
Oh,
I'm
she's not
playing
supposed to be a
him.
beast.
Yeah, he's not a beast, so
I
it's
mean, after what you
mostly for
just
the
said,
utility.
with that big mace in his hand, he kind of.
Yeah, he is a beast.
Yeah, but just of a different kind. Okay, cool. Well,
Yeah,
what's the? Do you have? Is there any more allies we're going through?
yes, there are. So we also have the um, Guy's Songbird. This one is only active when you're level 3 because it's a Terra. But on when you play it, it reveal cards from the top of your deck until you get a beast card. So this is basically gonna late game search out your Silverback or your Gaia's Wing, and then because you're level 3, it's gonna be a 1/3 interceptor, which just gums up the board, and it's essentially free. It costs almost nothing, so we just like it. Smooths out the deck, finds the cards that are gonna end the game, which is great. Pretty straightforward. I run 3 copies of this one just because uh, it helps fill up the board, helps you get your it's just a lot of value, and it creates board presence, which is
Seems
great.
like another card good with that Asian protector.
It is also very good with Asia Protector. If they don't kill it, you can bounce it. If you're playing your Asia Protector late, the thing about the late game though is it gets harder to play cards like Asian Protector just because you'll have less cards at hand because you're paying out to try to get all these other things. Plus, you're playing your opponent's killing some of your cards and stuff, so
There may be
it's
more
sometimes hard.
card draw effects as the game comes closer to its full release, potentially.
Mm,
Well, I guess we'll find out.
maybe.
More card draw
Yeah.
like
Well,
Dungeon Guide.
actually, well, I guess that's we'll get to it. But she's actually pretty. Sylvie's pretty good for card draw. But we'll finish out the allies first. So there's 2 more allies here. Um, I'm also running 2 copies of Rebellious Bull, and to be honest, I'm not crazy about Rebellious Bull because he costs a whopping 5. Which, if you start the game with 7 cards, this is going to cost 6 of them. So that's a lot. If you go second, it's going to cost. You're going to have 2 cards left in hand. So it's hard to protect him early. 3/4 stat line is huge, but he also needs to be Pride 3 in order for you to attack. So he's probably not going to attack on the next turn if you play him turn 1. But if you get the buff on him, a 4/5 is a lot beefier. And if they don't kill it with cards that don't have floating memory, then it's good value. Also, it's probably one of your only beasts that's like kind of tanky and can start clearing the board for you early, other than like playing your hawks or trying to just get by with attacking with Swift Recruit and Menagerie and stuff.
I mean, with him having an intercept would be pretty. It's pretty nuts as well.
At level 3, honestly, by level 3, I won't have the cards to play Rebellious Bull most of the time, and if I do, I'm probably going to be playing Gaia or the Silverback instead. So this is kind of like if you're in a matchup where you know your opponent's not going to play too many allies, or they're going to have to spend real cards to kill it, like versus Rye, like it's kind of hard to do 4 or 5 damage with only floating memory cards, and he doesn't play that many minions usually, so it'll probably stick around, and then 3/4 is pretty threatening to get smacked for 3 every turn once you can turn it on.
Okay.
So only 2 of those. And then the last one is another like utility good wind card, Dream Fairy. So Dream Fairy 3 for a 1/2, not too crazy on the stats, but it has stealth, so that means that it can't be targeted for attacks unless they have True Sight. So it'll probably stick around, and also it really can get rid of like pesky things that you can't kill. So let's say they have a giant silverback that's 7/7, and you're not going to have 7 damage early, and you don't want them to draw cards or something. You can play Dream Fairy, push it into their memory, and then ping them for damage, and it's just generally annoying. So I only run 2 of them because it's good to deal with like big annoying things, and sometimes for other classes, they also play
She can get rid of any ally.
any
Any ally
ally.
you
Yeah,
don't. Oh wow, that's pretty strong.
yeah. Also because you can play, it plays around. A lot of game plans play around like, oh, I want to play a floating memory ally early, and then have it die, and then I'll use it to pay for something. You could just push it back into their memory, and then they're like, okay, well,
I mean, like that.
I
That's
could just
very.
lose a random card.
I mean,
and then if they play it, they can't play it again while she's out either. So,
that
oh
card
wait,
seems
sorry, I
really strong actually. Because
the text
I'm just
the
thinking that.
text on this is wrong. Actually, I don't. I use the deck importer, which is using the old version of the card. I don't know if you have on your end the
I
correct
have the
version.
current one was on it to return target ally you don't control.
Yeah. Because this one says drawing cards. This is the original version, which
Yeah.
I liked more, but the new version is also very
Yeah. This one
strong.
seems very strong as it is because if there's an intercept that you a card on your opponent's side that you don't want to really deal with, you can just get rid of it.
Yeah, you just get rid of it, and you don't even have to waste damage on it because she'll just push it, and then she gets to push a damage, which I actually did in the game. So
And then
Dream Fairy,
early in the game, she makes it so if they're gonna materialize something, they run the risk now of losing that that card, right? That she's shoved
yeah.
back in the memory.
Or if you're playing against Rye or something, like they really want to banish arcane cards. And if you push an ally into their memory, maybe they won't banish an arcane card or something. So she's really tricky, and uh, also you can get extra value with Asian Protector if you bounce her.
Yes, you can.
Push other
That
stuff.
everything circles back to this guy. Maybe the
Yeah.
deck
So
needs to be just him.
well,
He just goes
well, you'll
over
see
top of
later that
Sylvie.
the Wind does a lot of this bouncing stuff. So there are other cards that can do it. So I only run 2 because it's kind of just like a utility sort of thing. I may or may not want to see it, so I just run 2, but it's good.
Got
And
it.
then that's all the allies in the deck. So do you want to go over some of the other cards, like
Of
action
course,
cards?
I
Or
mean the deck's not
yeah,
just allies, right?
okay.
So
Yeah. So let's talk about, I guess, the floating memory, because I think floating memory is like the core of a lot of the deck. So you're running your Beast Bonder and your Recruit. One of the other ones that I run in every single Wind deck a lot is Reclaim. It costs 2. It has floating memory, and that's awesome because you can basically like you can have get extra value when they try to kill your stuff. So or have them waste damage. So if you have your Menagerie Beast, they swing 2 damage in it, then they spend like an attack card or something on it. You just reclaim it, they lose the attack, you get floating memory for this card, and you get the card back in hand. So that's just great. Also, all your on enter things you get to use again. So if your dungeon guide lives, or even if you just put your dungeon guide out and you have 3 cards in hand, you could just pull it back to your hand. So great card. Run 4 of them. Floating memory. Always want that.
Yeah,
And next,
that is another strong card.
yeah, and then another one
I'm
that
liking green.
yeah, me too. I like it more than fire for Sylvie at the moment. So favorable winds is another card that really helps out with this game plan of playing minions that stick around because it's fast speed and it just gives all of your allies +1 health, which can save an ally. A lot of people don't have a lot of extra damage, or if they don't, just this card existing in your deck will force people either to overcommit into your allies if you have cards in hand. So they'll be like, oh, it has 4 health, but I have to be ready to deal 5 damage to it in case they have this card. And it has floating memory. So I actually don't run as many of it because I have another card that's in the deck that fills a similar role, but I run 3 of these. It's obviously great because it has floating memory. It could get you value, and it's because it's fast. If you don't feel like you need it, you can always just play it like at the end of your opponent's turn, just so that you could pay to level up with floating memory instead of like random cards you put down that you might want back in your hand. And then is that all the floating memory we have here? That is all the floating memory. All right. I guess we'll look at another card that is a good reason to run Sylvie. So Terrasite, it doesn't look that exciting. It's cost 0 and it draws a card, but it also has this text on it that says preserve, which means when it resolves, it goes back into your material deck. And instead of materializing on a turn, you can take a preserve out of your material deck and put it in your hand. So late game, a lot of the times you'll run into a situation if it gets really grindy that both you and your opponent won't have that many cards in your material deck anymore, so you can't do anything. But if you have 1 Terrasite, you could pull that out and play that every single turn, and you're essentially drawing 2 cards every turn, and your opponent's probably drawing 1. And then eventually you just bury them in card value. So it's just great. I run 3 of them, not because they're really great in multiples, but because I definitely want to see one, because I want to have the option to be able to draw cards back up, because if you get into the late game and you don't have many cards in hand, you won't be able to play your beast. So it's important to be able to like refill your hand. So she's one of the few allies that, well, I guess not few, but Bri also draws cards a lot in his level 3, but Sylvie also can draw quite a few cards in the late game if it gets grindy.
It's great art on these cards.
Mm-hmm. And then the next card we're going to talk about is Blissful Calling. So Blissful Calling costs 1. You look at the top 5, and you could get an animal or a beast. I'm running how many beasts now? And there's 4, 8, 4, 8. Oh man, math. 14, 16, 16, 18, 20. I think there's like 20 beasts in here, so you're probably going to hit something. Also, because it's a melody, it will combo with another card, but this will help you like look through your deck looking for basically these guys late. Probably your silverbacks are like your premium card you really want to draw in most games, so use this to get your silverback. Also, it's just a nice card that on turn 1, you generally want to play something in case you want to go into level 1, because if you don't put anything into memory, you can't pay anything out of memory to get to level 1. So Blissful Calling doesn't risk anything, replaces the card in hand, and yeah, just smooths the deck out. So I run 3 of them.
Melody, eh?
Yeah,
Feels melody.
we're
All right.
running one other melody here,
And
and
just for
that's
those who don't know what melody is, could you just give us a quick what that
melody
is?
is just a subtype of action card. So melody cards, there's other cards that will have a text that says harmonize, and it'll have an extra payoff if you played a melody card that turn. So you want to run a bunch of melody cards so that you can get your payoff in the in the harmonize. Song of Nurture, it also has the class bonus of, so basically it costs 2, and it'll bump the health of your guys. It's like a stronger favorable wins, but also gives them +1 health, and +1 attack for the turn. And it might not sound like that big of a difference, but because of breakpoints, like adding 2 health can be like a really big difference. And if it saves your monkey, like they've dumped a ton of damage, or even if it saves your Asian protector, like that's another 3 damage next turn. It really helps you secure the board. And holding up 3 cards, well, 2 cards and this card to play it isn't like the hardest thing. 3 cards is probably like your average kind of play 1 card, hold up 1 card type of play. So it's a solid option and counts as a melody in case you can play it with the same turn another card happens. So you're playing both of these melodies, and then you're also, oh, sorry, I run 3 of those as well. And then I just run 2 of this, which is like the payoff for it. It's cost 3. It just puts a buff counter, which is basically a +1/+1 counter that's permanent on all of your allies. You're not going to want to play it until you could get it on probably like 2 or 3 allies, or especially the bigger ones. But if you play it, usually if you try to, like the natural combo would be a Blissful Calling and then play it. So you get the harmonized bonus and then draw a card, and then it doesn't cost you a card. So the only reason I'm running 2 of them is because if you end up with too many of these tricks and buffs and you don't have enough allies, like your hand is dead and does nothing. So it's it's there. So like if the opportunity comes up, I can play it, but I'm not really like gunning for this card. Then what else are we running? We're running. Um, I'm only running 1 second winds. Second winds is also, I guess, a kill card, because second winds has class bonus for warriors, so you don't get the +1 attack on the ally, but it wakes up an ally at instant speed. So I mean, if you're in a pinch, you can like untap your Silverback, and then it can soak up a lot of damage for you. Or most likely, you're just gonna play it when your Silverback's out, and then you attack with Silverback. You play this, it untaps. I mean, it awakens itself, and then you attack for another 7, and that like 14 damage is huge. So this can win you the game, but again, I'm not really counting on it because her late game is kind of got inevitability with Arma anyway, and drawing cards a lot of the time. So I just run 1 as like just to have it there as a threat. And then other than that, we're running Fairy Whispers. We're running 3 copies of Fairy Whispers, which is pay 1, glimpse 3. You can then you reveal the top card after you've glimpsed, and if it's a win card, put it in your hands. It doesn't it replaces itself, so it's like a free play. Helps smooth out the deck, and with I think there's 32 win cards in this deck, so with over half of your cards being wind, you're probably going to hit with the Fairy Whispers and not be too sad. So that one's straightforward. And then the last one is Deflecting Edge. And Deflecting Edge is just another way to protect your creatures, but it's super efficient because it is 1 or potentially 0 for preventing 3 damage, which really makes a huge difference when protecting, especially if you're like on a turn where you're like played the bull and you have almost no cards in hand. The deflecting edge costs only 1 to activate, but it's also reduced by 1 if you have a sword. And I do run 1 sword, so if you sit out with the sword, it could be just if you have 1 card in hand, you could like save one of your allies, which makes a big difference. I'm running 2 of those. I think that's every card in the deck.
All right, so just before we go, let's quickly run over the material deck there. I
Oh
know
yeah,
there
yeah,
may be some bread and butters. We might have to get rid of some of the cards here on the table just so we
yeah.
can make room. So,
Yeah, you want to get rid of these bottom ones, or?
like that.
All right.
Boop.
Okay, so your material deck is 12 cards, so these 4, obviously, plus Beast Bond ears. You run it basically in every Silvie deck because it costs 0 and it gives you a level if you have a beast or an ally, so that really helps you push the levels up easily. If you have an off turn where you don't want to pay memory to like level up or anything, this is a nice, easy play. I'm running Sword of Seeking. You don't get the class bonus because you're not a warrior, so you don't get True Sight. But it has 2 durability, and being able to attack for 1 twice is essentially 2 damage on for 0 over 2 turns. It can help you smooth out the damage you need to like kill an ally that's you really need dead, and also can discount your deflecting edge. So I'm running it there. Flute of Taming. I think you run this in every single Silvie deck, and also it can be played. You can play it actually pretty early because it does 2 things that you like. It either gives you a level until the end of the turn, which can help you attack with pride minions, or it can give a health or attack to a beast or an animal, which makes a big difference because it means like your squirrel can do 2 damage and clear something, or your bull can survive because it has 5 health versus 4 health or something like that. Very strong. Something you can do every turn. And then the Melodious Flute, I'm running not really so much for the second part, banishing it so that you can get the harmony effect on a card, but just because it also gives it can give you a +1 level, and for Arima it costs like six you need to be level 6 essentially, and you get 3 naturally. You get 1 from here, 1 from here, and 1 from here. So there's a chance that if you play them all out, you could just have Arima active without relying on like the Menagerie Bonder or anything like that. So I'm running that, and then we're running both wind and fire. I think these cards will be different in the main set because obviously there's also going to be water, and devoting three cards to draw 1 isn't is a much bigger cost than 2 slots. I run this basically because you want more cards in hand so that you can play cards that will save your allies, and you might just need 1 extra card. So you'll play the one that your opponent's playing, and then that matches up with your opponent's spirit card, and you get that extra card early. Very good. And whoops. I'm also running Orb of Regret because we're running so many. Well, honestly, it's pretty good in everybody, but because you're running so many tricks and like buffs and stuff, like you don't ever want to end up with a hand that's just like all tricks and no allies, because then you literally do nothing and die. So Orb of Regret can help you kind of sort of mulligan your hand. So
Wow, sort of. Have not even seen that card before.
yeah, Orb of Regret came in with her package of card. Well, the Sylvie update. And then lastly, we have a card specifically for the Riot Magic. Sylvie, I think, is a little bit slow, and Riot likes to go off and kill you in one turn. So the beast spawn boots, if you have a animal or beast ally, you can pop it and you get Spell Shroud, which works kind of like Conceal. So you can no longer be the target of an attack. So if they play like Arcane Arcane Blast, which does 11 to you, and you pop this in response, you'll have Spell Shroud. You'll no longer be able to be a target, and then the card will fizzle. So you can save yourself a lot of health by having this in your deck. You could run the other one, I guess, too, but there's just not enough space to fit everything I want. So these are the ones I thought were most important.
And a lot of the games I'm gonna assume is like trying to figure out when to bring in what thing from your material deck, and
Yeah,
etc. from there. Well, I want to say I think and me and along with anyone else who's watching this videos definitely learned a lot about Sylvie. She has a lot of depth going on with this character, and
there's a lot of depth with every champion, to be honest,
yeah.
but which
Well,
is
you
why I
know,
love the
we
game.
have to get you in here to show us the strength of some of these other characters. But for
Mm-hmm.
now, I think it'll be good for people to marinate on this a bit, and maybe if you got anybody, so I got comments at the bottom of this video here in the comment section there, they can go ahead and
Mm-hmm.
ask them. I think you're going to be using this deck sometime soon, but we made a promise not to post it up until the event, so no one is making a deck to counter you. So as
Well, I will say I don't think Sylvie is the strongest deck in the current format right now, but she is very fun to play. So
you know what? The early adopters of the character are going to be the ones who know are the best in it. They definitely, I think we're talking to one today. I want to say, 40, thank you so much for the deck
Mhm.
profile. And I think there's going to be a lot to take home from this. I know I've learned way more about this character than I ever thought I could,
Mm.
and mostly because I had interest in playing her, and now I understand more of what her kit looks like and what she wants to do.
Mhm.
So I appreciate that. And this is one of the first deck profiles I've seen for this game. You're the only guy I see putting out their deck. So anybody out there, if you're joining into the Discord, please look this guy up, man. He's got a lot of knowledge. And I think it's important to get folks like you a spotlight and get that info out there.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for having me.
All right, thank you so much, man, and take care. If they want to follow you anywhere, where can they do that?
Uh, you can follow me at 40% drawn on Twitter.
There you
Uh,
go.
I'm an artist, so
Oh,
post art there sometimes.
maybe we'll have to have you design a mat sometime, eh? uh,
Maybe, maybe.
all right. Well, thanks so much. Take care of yourself, and everyone, you've definitely been filled in with Sylvie today. Take care.